Hello, students, and welcome to the next Career Day interview. I am here with Darby Carroll. Darby, if you could let us know what career it is that you have and the steps that you had to take to get to where you are now.
Yeah, so I am Darby Carroll. I am a speech language pathologist. I'm actually Miss Karam's sister, so if you know Mrs. Karam, yay. I'm living in Savannah, Georgia, just outside of it. And to get to become a speech language pathologist, there was quite a bit of work, but it was all completely worth it. I had to go to a 4-year college, so I went to Ithaca College for that. After that, I went to 2 years of graduate school at St. Rose. So I have my bachelor's in speech language pathology, and then I have a master's in communication sciences and disorders. Essentially the same thing, not a huge difference. So throughout college, I had to do a lot of the coursework, learning everything. And then I also had to do 25 hours of observation plus 375 hours of a clinical practicum. So that's going into schools, clinics, hospitals, working at on-campus clinics, all of that fun stuff. It all had to add up to 375 hours. Once I got all of that, I completed all my coursework. I had to take a really big exam that ended up being extremely easy, but it's what psychs you out. You get really nervous. Do the testing, you get your initial license. Once you get your initial license and you graduate everything, you have to complete a clinical fellowship. So that is a paid experience. It's about 1,260 hours. It's a minimum of 9 months. So for that is to get your official certification from the American Speech Hearing Association. We call it ASHA. So I am currently completing my clinical fellowship. I'm actually only 1 month from being complete. So by the end of April, beginning of May, I'll be all done, and I'll officially be a certified speech language pathologist. Every state is a little bit different. So for me in Georgia, I have to have a state license. I eventually will have to have my clinical certification. And then to work in a school, I have to do a few extra exams, workshops, and have a teacher certification.
Thank you, and congratulations on being so close to the finish line there. I think it's really helpful for students to hear what is required right now to go into this profession. This is really current in terms of what they might expect. And going along with that, some students may have selected this video because they want to become a speech pathologist. Could you walk us through a typical day in your field of work?
Yeah, so I'm actually working in 2 different places right now. So I do work in a private practice. I also work in a school. So both settings are a little bit different, which is why I love it. So in the clinic, I'm there for 3 days out of the week. I work with little people, ages birth to 6 years old. A lot of people are like, how can a speech language pathologist work for a little guy that's not even talking yet? But we actually do a lot of playing. So my day looks like doing arts and crafts, playing with Legos, reading books, all that fun stuff. I also work with feeding. So for those kids that have autism, I specialized in autism throughout my graduate school, and now even in my fellowship, I really love working with the community. So working with them on sensory feeding, different sensory needs. I work really closely with an occupational therapist. So we do a lot of that stuff. I also work with a little guy that had a brain injury when he was just a baby, and he can no longer swallow, chew, any of that stuff. So he gets fed through a tube. So I work with him on making sure he's getting all that nutrition, and then all of his muscles to help him if he was ever to get something in his mouth and needs to swallow, or even his spit, he can't swallow. So we work on doing that type of stuff. When I go into the school, those other 2 days, right now I'm working in grades 3 through 5. Next school year, I'm supposed to be working in a few other grades, but right now just 3 through 5, which I like. It's a change from what I usually do in the clinic. In the school, I usually do a lot of ELA, vocab, reading, comprehension, all of that fun stuff. I also work on articulation, so that's making the right sounds. in those words. Some kids have a hard time making the R sounds, the S sounds, all of that fun stuff. So I help them figure out how to make those sounds and then put them into their speech. With both settings, I have a lot of meetings. So I do IEP meetings. I meet with the teachers. I meet with the parents, just to make sure that the kids are getting what they need, because each kid has a lot that they need. So we need to figure out what everyone needs and make sure they get it.
Thank you so much. It sounds like you have such a broad range of responsibilities that some people may not have expected when they hear speech pathologist. And with all that you do, what would you say you love most about your job?
My favorite thing is working with the kids. So a lot of speech language pathologists, you can work anywhere from birth to end of life. Some people work with 80, 90-year-olds. Personally, I don't like working with the adults. I love the little people. I love not even just little people, just kids. They're so fun. So that's definitely my favorite part. And it's celebrating the little victories. People often look over like saying mama, but it's such an amazing thing when a 4-year-old is not talking and then finally says mama. So that's one of my favorite things, is just those little victories.
Yeah, those big aha moments. That's pretty cool. So what would you say are the skills that are most important to be successful in a career like this? And that might be soft skills or those more trainable skills.
So some of the biggest skills that I learned the hard way through school and grad school is the flexibility and organization. You can do this job without having those, but it's going to be a lot harder. Being flexible, understanding that something can change in the blink of the eye and you have to adapt to that. The organization is going to help with that flexibility, because if you can plan, all right, this is something that might happen, here's how I'd respond to it. If this is happening, this is how I might respond to it. So organizing, planning, and being flexible. And then time management, which I'm very, very bad at. I'm still working on that. But that just comes with experience.
And that might be the answer to the next question I have for you, which is, what are some challenges in your job?
So definitely the time management and the procrastination that I have. That's one of my biggest weaknesses. If I don't have a deadline, it's not getting done. So the procrastination that I personally struggle with that is the paperwork. So you do work a lot with insurance companies. Right now, as a clinical fellow, I have a supervisor that I have to respond to. So making sure I get all that paperwork in a timely manner. Like I said, if there's not a deadline, it's probably not getting done when it should be. So trying to figure that out. And then the other biggest challenge I have, but it's something that I love figuring out, is, like I said earlier, learning what every kid needs, because everyone is different. So it's a challenge, but it's a fun challenge.
Thank you. What would you say your work environment is like? And understandably, you kind of have two different work environments, it sounds like.
Yeah, so both, when I moved down to Georgia, it was so easy to jump into them. Part of it is obviously the people. However, just the environment, it was so easy to get into it and just start working. This is a passion of mine, so that might have been, playing into it. But everyone is just so welcoming and supportive, because we're all there for the same reason. You want to help this child. So that's partly why I picked something like this, because you're working as a team. That's one of the biggest things in speech language pathology, is you are not by yourself. You're working as a team with OTs, parents, teachers, physical therapists, doctors, everyone. And I really like having that versus being on my own and trying to figure everything out.
No, that's great and important for kids to hear. If they enjoy being on a part of a team, or maybe they enjoy working more independently, that's kind of going to be important when you factor in your career.
Absolutely.
So, what are the salary ranges in this field? And would you say that there are opportunities for advancement in either salary or position as a speech pathologist?
Yeah, so In Georgia, the salary ranges from about 40,000 to 80,000 a year. In New York, it's similar. When I was looking at jobs out there, you usually start about 40, 50,000, and you go to about 80 to 100,000. There is a lot of opportunity for advancement. So starting out, you're going to be at that $40,000, $50,000, but that's right out of grad school with nothing else. Every time you take a continuing education class or you take some sort of certification class, you'll end up getting paid more. You can also, so the minimum that you need to be in the field right now is a master's degree. You can go for your doctorate if you want. That's more research based. So if you like that independence, you can be an independent, like work by yourself if you want to do research. That's not something that sparked my interest. So I didn't go for my doctorate. I don't really plan on it. But that's just because of what I want to do. But there's lots of room for advancement in this field.
Thank you. Would you say when you were in middle school or high school, were there any classes that you took or even activities that you were involved in that perhaps relate to your career now?
So people have asked me this a lot, and originally I was like, no, I never, when I was in high school, I didn't even know speech pathology was a thing. I actually wanted to be a doctor. I went to school, I took a class, I changed my mind very quickly. And then through talking with Mrs. Carroll, she kind of encouraged me to check out the speech pathology field, and I ended up falling in love with it within the first few classes that I took. However, I was reflecting and I was like, well, maybe part of me always knew I was going to be a speech pathologist, because when I was in high school, I had a high school job. I worked at a local deli. And in the place that I lived, there was a school for the deaf. And a lot of times those people would come into this local deli because it wasn't something like Price Chopper or ShopRite where you're not going to make that connection with someone. It was a local deli. So I started learning sign language because it was just so interesting to me. I didn't take any classes in high school. I kind of just started watching videos on YouTube, looking up random signs so that I could communicate with the customers that I had. And that's kind of where, now that I reflect, that's where everything started, because when I got to college, I started taking sign language classes and I heard all about speech language pathologists and all this stuff. So not directly, it wasn't the plan, but reflecting, I did definitely.
Well, I officially love your story. That is incredible. What a way to connect like a life experience to your future. That's incredible. And it sounds like all those that you service are very lucky to have you, because you certainly sound so passionate. So that's great.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you for your time in participating in this Career Day interview. We truly appreciate it, and I appreciate Ms. Karam for connecting me with you. So thank you, Darby, so much for your time.
It was my pleasure. I appreciate it.